The twin moons of Earth hung low over the forest as Lyra approached yet another dwelling, her orange skin gleaming faintly in the pale light. Her daughter, Kira, clung to her back, tiny fingers wrapped in her mother's blonde hair that cascaded down to her shoulders. 2 years. 2 years of doors closing, of frightened faces, of whispered words she'd learned meant dangerous and different. Lyra's legs trembled with exhaustion as she knocked on the wooden door of the remote homestead. She'd practiced her human speech countless times, rolling the strange syllables on her tongue. Please, shelter, child. The words felt clumsy, inadequate to convey the desperation that had become her constant companion since fleeing Velora. The door opened, and Lyra braced herself for the familiar pattern, widening eyes, a sharp intake of breath, the door slamming shut. But the man who stood before her simply looked at her with calm, gray eyes. He was tall, with weather-worn hands and dark hair touched with silver at the temples. He studied her orange face, her alien features, the exhausted child on her back, and then nodded slowly. "You look tired," he said simply. "Come in." Lyra's legs nearly gave out. She stared at him, wondering if she'd misunderstood the words, but he stepped aside, gesturing to the warm interior of his home. "I'm Eric. You need water? Food?" She nodded mutely, unable to trust her voice. As she stepped across the threshold, Kira stirred, raising her small orange face to peer at the stranger. Eric's expression softened as he looked at the child. "How long have you been walking?" he asked, leading them to a simple wooden table. 2 years, Lyra managed, her accent thick but clear. "Every place. They fear. They close doors." Eric set down a cup of water before her, then found bread and fruit. "Not every place," he said quietly. "Not here. You're safe now." As Lyra drank deeply, feeling the cool liquid soothe her parched throat, she watched this strange human who hadn't flinched at her appearance. For the first time in 2 years, the knot of fear in her chest loosened slightly. Perhaps, just perhaps, their wandering had finally come to an end. Morning light filtered through the windows of Eric's homestead, illuminating dust motes that danced in the air. Lyra awoke with a start, momentarily disoriented, before remembering where she was. Kira slept peacefully beside her on the soft bedding Eric had provided, the first real bed they had experienced in months. She found Eric outside, working on some kind of machinery. His hands moved with practiced efficiency over the components, and Lyra recognized the technology immediately. It was a water filtration system, but the design was crude compared to Veloran standards. "That coupling," she said softly, making him look up. "Wrong angle. Makes friction." Eric raised an eyebrow, then handed her a tool. "Show me." Lyra's orange fingers worked quickly, adjusting the mechanism with knowledge earned from years as an engineer on her homeworld. Within minutes, the system hummed to life more smoothly than before. Eric watched with genuine interest, not fear or suspicion, just curiosity. "You're an engineer," he said, impressed. "Was," Lyra corrected, her blonde hair catching the sunlight as she worked. "Now just mother. Refugee." Over the following days, a routine developed. Eric would work on his property, tending his garden, repairing equipment, maintaining the solar panels, and Lyra would help where she could. Her knowledge of advanced technology proved invaluable, and she found satisfaction in being useful rather than just tolerated. Kira began to emerge from her shell, her small orange face lighting up when Eric carved her a wooden toy from a piece of scrap wood. The kids' laughter, so rare during their wandering years, became more frequent. One evening, as they sat around Eric's simple dinner table, he asked the question Lyra had been expecting. "Why did you leave Velora?" Her hands trembled slightly around her cup. "War," she said quietly. "My mate, he died in first attacks. I took Kira, ran, could not stay, could not let her grow up in—" She struggled for the word. "Destruction." Eric nodded slowly, understanding in his eyes. "I lost my family too. Fire, 5 years ago. That's why I'm out here alone. Sometimes starting over means going somewhere no one knows your pain." Their eyes met across the table, and Lyra felt something shift between them, a recognition of shared loss, shared survival. Trust, fragile as new growth, began to take root. 3 weeks passed, and the homestead began to feel less like a shelter and more like a home. Lyra found herself smiling more often, her orange features relaxing from the constant vigilance that had defined her existence for 2 years. Eric's quiet presence became comforting rather than strange. His steady routines provided a structure that Kira desperately needed. "Mama, watch!" Kira called out in Veloran, her small hands clutching the wooden toy Eric had made. She was attempting to mimic the way Eric chopped wood, her movements exaggerated and adorable. Eric chuckled from where he sat, repairing a broken chair. "She's got spirit," he said, his eyes warm. "Too much spirit sometimes," Lyra replied, her human speech improving daily. She was mending one of Eric's shirts, a domestic task that felt both foreign and oddly satisfying. "She's a kid. Kids should forget to be careful sometimes." Eric paused in his work, looking at Lyra directly. "You both should. You're safe here." Lyra's hand stilled on the fabric. "How can you be sure? Other humans—" "Aren't me," Eric interrupted gently. "I don't care what color your skin is, Lyra. Orange, blue, green, doesn't matter. You're a good person, a good mother. That's what I see." The words struck something deep within her, and Lyra felt her carefully constructed walls begin to crumble. For 2 years, she had kept her emotions locked away, focused only on survival. But here, in this quiet place, with this quiet man, she felt them returning. Hope, gratitude, and something else she wasn't ready to name. That evening, after Kira had fallen asleep, Lyra and Eric sat on his porch, watching the stars emerge. Lyra pointed to a distant point of light. "Velora," she said softly. "My home. My old home. Do you miss it?" Eric asked. "Every day," she admitted, her blonde hair stirring in the evening breeze. "But also, I am starting to miss it less. This place, it is—" She struggled for the right word. "Peaceful?" Eric offered. "Home," Lyra corrected, then caught herself. No, you're right," Eric said, his voice gentle. "It is home. For all of us now." Lyra turned to look at him, this human who had opened his door when all others had closed theirs, and felt her heart crack open just a little more. She smiled, her orange features lightening and the mirroring stars in her eyes.
Spring arrived with an explosion of color around the homestead, and Kira delighted in the wildflowers that dotted the meadow. Lyra watched her daughter chase butterflies, her small orange face radiant with joy she'd never known during their wandering years. The child had grown comfortable here, calling Eric Ari in her broken mix of Veloran and human speech. Lyra found herself growing comfortable too, perhaps too comfortable. She caught herself watching Eric as he worked, noticing the strength in his movements, the kindness in his eyes when he taught Kira how to plant seeds in the garden. Her heart would flutter in ways that both thrilled and terrified her. One afternoon, while working together to repair the homestead's communication array, their hands touched over a component. Eric didn't pull away immediately, and neither did she. For a long moment, they stood frozen, the air between them charged with unspoken possibility. "Lyra," Eric began, his voice rougher than usual, "I need to tell you something." Her orange skin flushed a deeper shade, her blonde hair falling forward to partially hide her face. "What is it?" "When you first arrived, I thought I was just helping someone in need. It's what anyone should do." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "But it's become more than that. You've become important to me. Both of you." Lyra's breath caught. "Eric, You don't have to say anything," he continued quickly. "I know it's complicated. You're still healing from losing your mate. You're in a strange world. "Stop," Lyra said softly, placing her hand on his arm. "You talk too much sometimes." She smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her features. "I feel it too. This connection. It frightens me." "Why?" "Because last time I opened my heart, I lost everything. My mate, my world, my life. What if—" "Life is risk," Eric said gently, covering her hand with his. "I lost my family, swore I'd never get close to anyone again. But you two walked through my door and suddenly everything changed." Kira's laughter rang out from the garden, and they both turned to watch her play. "She's happy here," Lyra observed. "Are you?" Eric asked. Lyra looked up at him, her alien features soft with emotion. "Yes, more than I thought possible. You made this home not just shelter, but belong. Then stay, not as refugees, as family." Tears welled in Lyra's eyes, the first she'd allowed herself to shed in 2 years. "Family," she repeated, testing the word. "Yes, I want that." Summer brought warmth and abundance to the homestead. The garden Lyra and Eric had planted together flourished, producing vegetables in shades that reminded Lyra of her homeland. Kira had learned to swim in the nearby creek and could speak nearly fluent human speech, though she still preferred Valoran when excited or tired. The child's presence had transformed the quiet homestead into something alive and vibrant. Her toys littered the porch, her drawings decorated the walls, and her laughter filled the spaces that had been silent for too long. But more than Kira's presence, it was the gradual unfolding of Lyra and Eric's relationship that had truly changed everything. They moved closer, in small increments, a hand held while walking, shoulders touching as they sat on the porch at night, finally a kiss under the stars that felt like both an ending and a beginning. Lyra's orange skin would flush whenever Eric looked at her a certain way, and her blonde hair became his favorite thing to brush behind her ear when they talked. "I want to show you something," Eric said one evening, leading Lyra to a small workshop behind the house. Inside, he'd been building a structure, a hybrid of human and Valoran design, using techniques she'd taught him. "What is this?" Lyra asked, running her fingers over the smooth surfaces. "A greenhouse," Eric explained. "I thought we could grow some of the plants from your homeland. I've been researching, and I think with some modifications to the soil composition." Lyra turned to him, overwhelmed. "You did this for me?" "For us," he corrected. "So Kira can know something of where she came from. So you have a piece of Valora here, with us." Tears slipped down Lyra's orange cheeks. 2 years, she whispered. 2 years of doors closing, of being unwanted, of being feared. And then you opened your door, your home, your heart. "Best decision I ever made," Eric said, pulling her close. "Mama, Eri!" Kira called from outside. "Come see! The flowers opened!" They walked out together, hand in hand, to find Kira dancing among the evening blooms. The child's joy was infectious, and soon all three were laughing, playing in the garden as the twin moons rose overhead. Lyra looked at Eric, at Kira, at this life they'd built together from the fragments of their broken pasts. She'd sought shelter and found sanctuary. She'd asked for safety and found family. She arrived as a refugee and became something she never expected, beloved. The door Eric opened that night wasn't just to his home, it was to a future filled with love, belonging, and the promise that sometimes, after the longest journey, the heart finally finds its way home.